Hi everybody, I'm Marty Dunn.
And I'm Dave Lynn, and we're going to talk about some of the rulemaking coming out of the SEC recently.
So the first one we're going to talk about is what people call the FAST Act provisions. And in 2015, the FAST Act was enacted and it directed the Commission to look at ways to streamline the disclosure process. And the Commission adopted a bunch of changes that on their own look small, but when you combine them, it's really a lot of changes to what your periodic reports look like. And those changes start coming into play for your next Q or K, for the June 30 filing you're going to make. And so we just wanted to go through the list to give you an idea of how broad this is and what you have to be aware of. First, the cover page of your reports are going to change to include information about where your stock is listed in the symbol. Then it goes into description of property, MD&A, discussion about your officers, directors, and significant employees, your Section 16 compliance, your corporate governance, whether you're an EGC and need a compensation committee report, or whether you're another company and your audit committee report has a weird reference to the PCAOB. It goes to the cover page of prospectuses, risk factors, plan of distribution, incorporation by reference, undertakings, and lastly, exhibits and confidential treatment requests, which I'm going to turn to Dave to talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, this is one change that I think is a big change in practice, and basically for omitting information on the basis that it's confidential, you now go from a system that used to be ask for permission by making a confidential treatment request to the staff ahead of time to asking for forgiveness if the SEC comes back and decides that you omitted the information and didn't have a basis to do so. And so now going forward, instead of submitting a confidential treatment request up front, you have the option of basically omitting the information and then being subject to staff review, where they're going to perhaps ask for your rationale, maybe question how much was redacted. The whole framework for omitting the information that's confidential is still the same. It has to have competitive harm, and it can't otherwise be material information. But the approach now will be significantly different. You can still request confidential treatment, and they'll still process those through a confidential treatment request, but that aspect is no longer necessary. I think most people will go for the ask for forgiveness route than the ask for permission. Also, you'll be able to omit schedules and exhibits to the extent they're not material from material contracts. That used to be just limited to situations where it was an acquisition agreement. And you can omit personal identifying information. That's something the staff has said you can do for a while, but if you have telephone numbers, addresses, things like that, social security numbers, you can take those out and not include them and not have to make any sort of request.
Yeah, and the confidential treatment rules were effective April 2nd, so this is all now stuff. The second thing we wanted to talk about was Rule 163B, which was proposed in February, which would extend test the waters for all issuers. It basically provides an exemption from 5C and 5B1 to permit oral and written offers to QIBs and institutional accredited investors only. And it would be before or after filing the registration statements. That would be a fundamental change to how the 33 Act process works. It's been whittled away at for a while. Some of the conditions to it, it's very wide open. Any issuer, no filing, no legend, no informational requirement other than it can't conflict with the registration statement. But it's important to note it's still an offer. So Section 17, 12A2, and 10B liability would apply. The last couple things are, as far as whether you're talking to a QIB or an IAI, you just have to have a reasonable belief. You don't have to take steps to verify. And lastly, the Commission included a warning about complying with Reg FD. I think because the 33 Act exemption is not all-encompassing, and it wanted to remind folks they still have to be mindful of it. So I usually don't focus on proposals, but I think this is a big one, and I encourage people to comment on it because the process is going to be everything. So that's my topics. Do you have anything more, or we're good?
No, I think that's all we have for today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you all.